In the 1800s, a woman escaped slavery and became a conductor of the Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses that helped enslaved people flee to freedom. She made at least 13 trips back into the South, risking her life to guide more than 70 others to safety. Her bravery and resourcefulness were legendary, and she was even known as Moses to those she helped liberate. During the Civil War, she put her skills to use for the Union Army. She served as a spy, gathering crucial intelligence on Confederate positions and troop movements, and worked as a nurse, treating wounded soldiers. She even led a military raid in which hundreds of enslaved people were freed. After the war, she continued to fight for justice and equality. She was a suffragist, a civil rights activist, and a passionate advocate for the rights of all people. Her legacy has inspired generations of people around the world, and in this episode, we'll explore the incredible life and accomplishments of this American hero, who was a beacon of hope for those who were oppressed and enslaved. Welcome to Time Capsule Tales, the podcast that brings you bite-sized stories from history. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the life of a remarkable woman who played a pivotal role in American history, Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery, Tubman not only escaped from bondage herself, but also returned to the South over 13 times to rescue more than 70 other slaves through the Underground Railroad. She was also a suffragist, a civil rights activist, and a nurse during the American Civil War. Her life and work have inspired generations of people around the world. On this Memorial Day, it's fitting to remember the bravery and sacrifices of those who fought for freedom and justice. Harriet Tubman is a shining example of such a person, who risked her own life to help others escape slavery and fight for their rights. She embodies the spirit of courage, determination, and resilience that we celebrate on Memorial Day. So let's dive into her story and discover more about her incredible legacy. Harriet Tubman was born into slavery in Maryland in the early 1820s. Her exact birth date is unknown, as birth records for slaves were not normally kept at that time. She was born to parents who were also enslaved, and she had several siblings. Her early life was characterized by hard work and brutality, as she and her family members were subjected to the physical and psychological abuse that was all too common for enslaved people in the American South. The United States in the 19th century was a nation deeply divided by issues of race and slavery. Slavery was legal in the South, and many white Americans believed that it was essential to the economy and way of life in the region. However, there were also abolitionists in the North who believed that slavery was morally wrong and should be abolished. Harriet's early life and experiences as a slave were shaped by this political and social climate. During Harriet's lifetime, there were several significant events and movements that shaped the political and social landscape of the United States. For example, the Missouri Compromise of 1820 allowed Missouri to enter the Union as a slave state, but also prohibited slavery in any new states formed north of Missouri's southern border. This compromise helped to temporarily ease tensions between the North and South, but it also served to entrench the institution of slavery in the United States. Another significant event that occurred during Harriet's lifetime was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. This law made it a federal crime to assist runaway slaves, and required all citizens to assist in the capture and return of escaped slaves. The law was highly controversial and many Northerners refused to comply with it, leading to tensions between the North and South. Against this backdrop, Harriet's work as a conductor on the Underground Railroad took on even greater significance. She was part of a broader movement of abolitionists who sought to end slavery and promote equality for all people. The Underground Railroad was a key part of this movement, as it provided a way for enslaved people to escape to freedom, despite the harsh laws and attitudes that surrounded them. In addition to her work on the Underground Railroad, Harriet was also involved in other political and social movements of her time. She was an active participant in the women's suffrage movement, which sought to give women the right to vote. She also supported the Union during the Civil War, serving as a nurse and a cook for Union soldiers. Hey there, Time Capsule Tales listeners! Just a brief pause in the episode to kindly ask you to hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating or review if you haven't already. Your support and passion for these bite-sized bits of history truly inspire us to keep unearthing fascinating stories for you. Thank you, and now let's get back to exploring the past. As we delve deeper into the story, we should discuss the structure and purpose of the Underground Railroad. This network of secret routes and safe houses was established in the United States during the early to mid-19th century, and it aimed to help enslaved African Americans escape to freedom. The Underground Railroad was not a literal railroad, but rather a metaphorical one, with its conductors helping people move from one safe location to another until they reached their destination, often in the northern states or Canada. After the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, the primary destination of the railroad became Canada, as the law required United States citizens to help with the recapture of escaped slaves. Often the job of conductor came with significant risk to the individual, risking severe beatings, imprisonment, or even hanging. For the slaves themselves, their very freedom was on the line. Tubman, herself a former slave who had escaped to freedom, played a pivotal role in this network as a conductor. Known as the Moses of her people, she risked her own safety to guide hundreds of slaves to freedom. Throughout her time as a conductor, it is estimated that Tubman made 19 trips back to the South and helped around 300 slaves escape bondage. She was never caught, and none of the people she guided to freedom were ever recaptured. Some of the most remarkable stories from her work on the Underground Railroad showcase her courage, determination, and resourcefulness. One such story took place when Tubman was leading a group of 11 fugitive slaves through a town near the Pennsylvania border. As they approached the town, they found the bridge crossing a river to be heavily guarded. Instead of retreating, Tubman led the group to a nearby rowboat, where they silently crossed the river and continued on their journey to freedom. Another notable story occurred when Tubman received word that her own family members were about to be sold. In response, she rushed back to Maryland, where she orchestrated the escape of her 3 brothers, who were enslaved on a nearby plantation. Using her extensive knowledge of the local landscape and secret routes, she successfully guided them to freedom, ensuring that her family remained united and safe. Harriet Tubman's work on the Underground Railroad is a testament to her unwavering commitment to justice and equality. Her bravery, intelligence, and skill as a conductor saved countless lives, and her legacy continues to inspire us today. Her service during the Civil War as a nurse, scout, and spy for the Union Army was a pivotal moment in her life. She had already gained recognition as an abolitionist and a conductor on the Underground Railroad, but her service during the war demonstrated her bravery and strategic thinking in a new way. Tubman first offered her services to the Union Army in 1862. She was initially hired as a nurse, but her experience and knowledge of the area led her to also serve as a scout and spy. Tubman was able to gather crucial information about Confederate troop movements, including the location of mines and gun emplacements. Her knowledge of the terrain and people of the region made her an invaluable asset to the Union Army, and her efforts were credited with helping the Union win key battles in South Carolina. One of Tubman's most significant accomplishments during her service was the Combahee River Raid. In June of 1863, she led a group of Union soldiers up the Combahee River in South Carolina. They destroyed Confederate supply lines, freed more than 750 enslaved people, and avoided significant casualties. The raid was a turning point in the war, and Tubman's role in planning and executing it was crucial. Tubman continued to serve the Union Army until the end of the war, often putting herself in danger to gather intelligence and support Union troops. Her contributions to the war effort were so significant that she was granted a military pension in recognition of her service. Tubman's work as a nurse, scout, and spy during the Civil War was an extension of her commitment to freedom and justice. Her bravery and strategic thinking made her an invaluable asset to the Union Army, and her contributions to the war effort helped bring an end to slavery in the United States. After the Civil War, she continued to be a powerful force for change. She worked tirelessly for women's suffrage, advocating for women's right to vote and speak out on political issues. She was also an advocate for civil rights, working alongside other prominent figures of the time, such as Frederick Douglass. Harriet's legacy continues to inspire people today. She was a symbol of strength, resilience, and determination, and her unwavering commitment to justice and equality made her an icon of the abolitionist movement. Her life and work continue to serve as a source of inspiration for activists, artists, and leaders around the world. In many ways, Harriet Tubman has been memorialized for her contributions to American history. In 2020, it was announced that her face will appear on the US $20 bill, replacing Andrew Jackson. There are also numerous statues and monuments honoring her legacy, including the Harriet Tubman National Historical Park in Auburn, New York, where she spent her later years. Additionally, her life has been portrayed in numerous works of art, including films, plays, and literature. Her story has even been adapted into a children's book and a graphic novel, ensuring that her legacy will continue to be passed down to future generations. I want to thank you for joining me, Chase, on this episode of Time Capsule Tales. I hope this episode has given you a glimpse into the extraordinary life and legacy of Harriet Tubman. As we wrap up, let's continue to explore the rich history of our world. There are so many incredible stories waiting to be discovered, and I look forward to sharing more of them with you on future episodes of Time Capsule Tales. Like Harriet Tubman, let's make a difference in the world and work towards a brighter future, where freedom and justice are a reality for all. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep exploring.